What it is, y'all. It's DJ Sean the Batman here, Bento Box Saturday. And today is a special Bento Box Saturday because I'm not going to actually play any music today on the show. I'm going to give my voluntary getting copyright struck when we put this up on YouTube in its entirety. When we put it up online in its entirety, YouTube loves to send me messages about it, so we're gonna make this one specially for YouTube. This is actually an air break during the show, but we're gonna make this specially for YouTube. No music in the background. You know what we do. We're a radio show. We play music. That is what we do. But you know, when you get to YouTube, sometimes, and I didn't get in trouble or anything. I'm just tired of getting muted in certain countries when I put the show up for everybody to hear that didn't get to hear it live. Okay, so that being said, we have some things to talk about here. First of all, the PS5 pre-release. Ooh, buddy, it's a disaster now that the smoke is cleared, even with the second rounds. And while there are two versions of the PS5, you may not be able to find one of the versions in stores, and that's putting it lightly. But also, we have Arashi. Yeah, on the music side, we have Arashi's big U.S. debut. Their venture into the U.S. market. I like to call it I like to call it an incursion. At this point, I'll call it an incursion, and we're gonna talk about that. Bruno Mars produced their track, and yeah, man, there's just lots to talk about today. Anyways, why don't we start with that Arashi track by Bruno Mars, because you know that is big in the industry, and that was unexpected, especially with the pandemic. I'd imagine that there was a plan to have a little more there, but with the pandemic, it kind of, stopped everything. So, anyways, the track is called "Whenever You Call," and I gotta say, it's beautiful. I mean, I've listened to it a few times. It's totally Bruno Mars, man. You can hear his influence in the track, and yeah, with the instrumentals and everything, it's definitely a Bruno Mars track. It's very well done by the boys, and I mean, if you're an Arashi fan, if you're like old school, like if this is what got you into J-pop, like if you're a purist, definitely, I mean, this is the track to check out. You're gonna love it. You're gonna feel that song. For me, as both journalism and fan, because Arashi has been around, I have dabbled in J-pop and K-pop for that matter, and Asian music in general. Like, I say this a lot in the show, but you guys know I've been dabbling in that since I was in like lower junior high school, and ever since you could download music off the internet illegally and stuff, and like, me growing up on a military base, I got exposed to some things, and some of these things were Asian music, and yeah, so Arashi is special to me. It is very special to me. It's very important to me. I mean, the group is very important to me. Their music is very important to me because, like Boa, it influenced a lot of like what I do. It's the very core of how I created my show and stuff. It's I sat down one day. I'm in college, and I'm starting this gig at a radio station, and I'm sitting there and I'm like, man, what do I want to do to make my show unique? Because everybody's playing modern rock, everybody's playing alternative, and I love that stuff too. And I'm like, you know what? I've always loved Asian music. I've always loved J-pop. I've always loved K-pop, J-rock, VK. I've always loved all that stuff. And like Arashi was one of the first groups I ever played on my show, and like I loved it. People that liked the show were like, man, what is that? And I was always happy to, educate them on what this genre was. Anywho, that being said, the review, "Whenever You Call," man. Okay, so on both the outside and the inside, this English single, man, it's great. It's exactly what you would expect from a top of the line boy group, and especially from a company as prestigious as the legendary Johnny's Entertainment. I think I was most surprised to see the big players like Billboard finally taking a notice to Arashi. And on the show for years, we have covered Asian artists, and J pop is, like I said, one of those genres. However, I gotta say, as a fan and a journalist, I have to wonder if this is a wee bit late. Now, you see, Arashi debuted, another reason they're special is they debuted on my birthday in 1999. This group has been around for 21 years, for those who don't know. If you're new to Arashi, I feel sorry for you. They are J-pop legends. Probably the first thing a diehard J-pop fan will talk about, or like if you bring up Johnny's Entertainment, this is the first group they're going to talk about. So naturally, when I saw Whenever You Call was an English song produced by Bruno Mars, I jumped to check it out. I had to have it. I had to check it out. I had to have it. So, just for reference here, Satoshi Ono, or Satoshi Ono, I'm not very good. Sorry if I butchered the Japanese pronunciation. It's hard sometimes, okay? So anyways, Satoshi Ono is 39. He will be 40 in November. And their youngest member is Jun Matsumoto, is 37 years old. Now, some of you are probably asking, Batman, why is DJ Batman, why in the hell is that relevant? Well, let me tell you why that's relevant. Arashi has legions of fans both in Japan and, outside the U.S. They have a very close following outside of Japan. They have a very close following outside of Japan. But generally, when an artist makes a move into the Western market with an English single or an album, they do it to attract the attention of a new demographic. This is usually a business move to increase popularity and open up, options in a new market, even in the U.S. So age discrimination is a thing in the music industry. Anybody who knows the music industry knows that age discrimination is a thing, especially in pop, even in the U.S., but not so much in the U.S., but more so in Japan. And the thing is, worldwide, the thing is, I worry as both fan and journalist that Arashi is on the wrong side of 30 to be making these changes. And what I mean by changes is suddenly Johnny's Entertainment artists are making incursions into the U.S. market. And I'm quite confused, really. Why wasn't this collaboration pushed with a newer artist from Johnny's like King and Prince? I'm not taking anything away from Arashi, and I'm certainly not here to talk too many comparisons to K-pop, but this is Bento Box Saturday, and it does have to come up. So before I go any further, I want to throw this disclaimer out there to all the Arashi fans, all the hardcore purist J-poppers. This is not here to rip on your genre. I am not here to compare and be biased and diss on you, although I'm sure some of you will argue that I am biased. I swear I'm doing my best to not be biased. I'm not. Anyways, Arashi is the pioneers of idol music. They're what I would consider one of the four horsemen of idol pop, whatever you want to call it. Whenever You Call is a great song, and the music video seriously gives me some 90s, 2000 vibes, back when things were a little bit simpler, a little bit happier. And I gotta be honest, I get giddy listening to it. I get on the YouTube, I watch the music video, you see the skyline, the city, all the lights and stuff, and these guys just dancing like it's 1999, like it's 2000, like it's 2002 again. Things are getting hard, but they're not too hard. Anyways, personally, I wish they would walk that hiatus talk back and give the West a chance to love them mainstream. So with that said, I hop on Twitter. I'm taking you back to how I found this track. I hop on Twitter, randomly. First thing I see regarding this is the big interview they did with Grammy.com. And in that interview, June talks about the group's venture into the U.S. and Western markets and the retooling of Arashi and everything. And you may not know this, but the band's debut single in the U.S. was actually released in August. It's called In the Summer. The group just launched, that's right, they just launched their official YouTube channel in 2019. This is some 20 years later. Jun goes on to tell Grammy.com that the decision to enter the U.S. market was a byproduct of the group getting involved in digital. And this makes some sense, as, I mean, if you're familiar with Asian music, physical media still sells very, very well. There's still incentive to get physical albums. I guess I could speak most from the experience in Korea. You buy enough albums, you can go to different fan meets and stuff. I'm not really sure if that's how it works with J-pop. I heard that that's how it was working with AKB48, and I heard that's how it would work with some of the groups like generations back in the day. But yeah, so physical media is still a thing in Asia. It is not dead. There is incentive to getting, physical albums and everything. I mean, digital is kind of a new thing to Asia in general, and that includes everybody. I'm including everybody here: Japan, Korea, Mandopop, like from Taiwan and stuff. It's kind of a new thing, especially for Japan. With that said, physical media is not really a thing in the U.S., there are groups that have, or there are singers that have not actually sold a single CD and won a Grammy. So the interview goes on to say, June goes on to say, they wanted to make sure that their legacy stays with fans, and fans are able to enjoy their music long into the future when no one listens to CDs. They see that things are starting to change. The value that digital has makes their music able to be enjoyed all over the world. Now, this is where I got to get critical. And this is the part I want to focus on for a minute. When asked why now, Jun went on to say that he doesn't feel that they've lost anything. They were able to do a lot in the span of time when they didn't have a social media presence. There was no sense of loss by not having social media, but now it's a sense of being able to do more than before in their growth and evolution as a group. So I'm sitting there and I'm like, well, wait a minute. They're just realizing the value of digital. How is that possible? I don't think I can hold Arashi responsible for this, actually, for not being in the market in the U.S. and Western countries for so long. See, here at Bento Box Saturday, if you followed us in the years before, you know that we do have some experience interviewing and promoting these artists. And I think it might be time to give you, the listener, a little insight into how difficult that was to legally do back in the infancy of the show and my time as music director. First of all, let's talk about their prestigious company, Johnny's Entertainment. This is pretty much a god-tier company when it comes to the music industry in Asia. Johnny's is the Motown Quincy Jones of Japanese music, of the Japanese music industry. An artist's reach, or rather the things they do to acquire that reach, are only as good as the management's orders, especially in Asia. When we would try to get music in rotation at the station, like when we would try to get an artist's music like sent to the station, like, hey, shoot this over, the easiest way to do that, usually you'll get a digital track from the label. Like they'll shoot it to you in email, hey, add this to your rotation. We're going for ads this week. We're going for CMJ ads, Radio 100 ads, all of that stuff. we would try to get that music in the rotation directly from the labels. And for Japanese music, I have to tell you, it would be a very, very, very hard situation. Even with DJ Monica, the native Japanese speaker on staff. And like we would be sitting there, we would be typing up templates. We would get into fights over this stuff, man. Okay, so I can remember us formally requesting music from a label in Japan and them flat out telling us no because the group isn't promoting in the USA. But then you would get a message like, oh, we'd like to promote in the USA, but we're not, so we can't send you this music. Also, in the realm of it was above, a lot of it was above even their managers to promote. What I mean by that is the people we were emailing actually sometimes it was outside of their realm of decision making. Sometimes, though, we would have really good success, and I mean, me and DJ Monica, we would almost always celebrate it. Like, for example, Use Music and Sony Japan are great friends of the show. That's why I went ahead and mentioned them by name. Use Music, Sony Japan, they are great friends of the show. LDH, great friends of the show. We've interviewed and promoted many of their artists over the years. We even talked to Generations from Exile Tribe. But I will go on record and saying, even as a radio station, we have had more rejections getting music than success. And I used to find myself frustrated and actually saying things like, you know, J-pop is stuck in the past. What are they doing here? Okay, so to go on that one, like we talked about digital earlier. The U.S. and Western countries totally do obviously consume music digitally more so than physical. Hell, Best Buy, stores like Best Buy used to sell CDs. Best Buy, Target still sells CDs, but Best Buy used to sell CDs in their store. They don't do that. Most of the Best Buys don't do that anymore. And like I said, there are Grammy-winning artists that have never sold a CD. It's a sign of the times. But as I said before, I don't think you can hold Arashi responsible for this. You see, management never ordered the release of digital material and copyright struck anything or had removed anything placed online not by them. What I mean by that is we'll dabble a little bit into this geo-blocking. You remember that. Somebody uploads something and it's blocked in this region. Or they would officially upload like something and it would be blocked in the US. So digital, like I said, digital is very new to Asia, even more new to Japan. So that's not the only thing, though, that has delayed entry of groups like Arashi into the U.S. market. When there is rare promotion into the U.S., or as I like to call it, a minor incursion, usually and unfortunately, J-pop has this somewhat, I like to call this abusive, my fun word, abusive relationship with anime. That is to say, it's almost always tied to anime in some way, and it's very hard to get away from that. However, when these artists come to anime conventions, it's very hard to get them acquainted with the right area of people. And what do I mean by that? I mean certain groups, management, would rather talk to who's familiar or who is producing articles about animation and video games, etc., than talk to the people who actually have the capability of putting even the smallest Japanese artists on charts like College Music Journal, CMJ, Radio 100, Billboard. They would rather talk to the ones with online presence in the community but are relatively unknown in the music world. I'm not knocking my friends that I've met over the years at AX and the different outlets that I've met over the years at Anime Expo, J-Pop Summit, or any of the other conventions like Fanime that do music festivals that I've ran into and I've made very good friends with over the years. Not knocking, heck, some of you guys are probably going to be at my wedding, but on the business side, Bento Box, Bento Box Saturday's mission always differed from their mission. My friends cared about the animators, the video game creators, the voice actors, and the new anime releases, live action Japanese films based off of anime. And I tended to, or I tend to focus, I still do, tend to focus on the music and the reoccurring members of media that we see at anime cons like Anime Expo and Fanime and J-Pop Summit when it was around were very different. They're very different from what we work with at Aftershock Festival or Firefly Festival and Warp Tour when it was around, Mayhem Tour, all of those, like even KCON, the cast of people in the media room are very different, and the experience level is very different. The experience level when you step out of, as far as music goes, when you step out of Anime Expo, J-Pop Summit, and Fanime, like when you step out of those realms and you get into Aftershock, Knotfest, Warp Tour, like I said, what's another one? Outside Lands, Firefly. The experience level in music is way up there. And what I mean by way up there is you have your online website bloggers, and this is not to knock Anime News Network, but I'm pretty sure there's a lot of things, obviously there's Anime News Network is like the premier source for anime news, and I mean they put J-pop up there, but I'll bet you they are no MTV. So what I'm saying is when I would go to things like Aftershock Festival, I'm sitting in the media tent and waiting for interviews behind guys like Fuse TV, Kerrang Magazine, AP, MTV, the list goes on. I'm saying the experience level, the stakes, all of that, the reach of these people goes way up at these music festivals. And with that said, sometimes familiarity for J-pop, and as it goes for J-pop, sometimes that familiarity, I think, is stunning their growth. I can remember Momoro Clover Z, coming to Anime Expo a few years back, and I believe they came with a member of KISS. Yeah, they came with a member of KISS, and he wasn't taking interviews that day, and that's fine. You can read about the stuff they're doing elsewhere. They've got a lot of media presence in the U.S. and but Momo Clo Z was relatively unknown to a mainstream crowd in the U.S. and because of their involvement with KISS, you had a lot of mainstream fans go to that show a few years back. Like you had a lot of metalheads at that show because they wanted to see Momo Clo Z because they thought that video that they did was badass. So that being said, on behind the scenes, let me tell you what happened here. KISS FM was in the building. A representative of KISS FM was in the building. I was talking with him outside the venue. And do you know that Momo Clo's management didn't want to talk to KISS FM? They didn't want to do anything with any radio stations really. I think they may have done one interview with another radio station, but it didn't really go anywhere. It was an online radio station. They didn't really have any type of, they didn't have any involvement with any of the reporting charts like CMJ or like Billboard or anything like that, or iHeart. They weren't an iHeart station or anything like that. But Momo Clo did not talk to KISS FM. But instead, KISS FM got bumped for an online blog. This is just the craziness that goes on at Anime Expo. And I'm not knocking Anime Expo at all or any of those shows like that. I got mad love and respect for them. But this is the craziness that goes on in the world of J-pop. This is what I mean when I say they kind of have an abusive relationship with anime, because I feel like anime and the people involved in the industry and in the media, they kind of dictate, or rather influence and control who these artists can talk to or would prefer to talk to. That's on management, though. That's not on Momoclo Z. It's kind of sad, because I think Momoclo had something going there and kind of just tapered off. Another example, Scandal. They did a U.S. show. Yes, we know they did a U.S. show during the week BTS was in L.A. But they've done a few U.S. shows, but they did a U.S. show and only had one thing to promote to new U.S. fans, and the rest was geo-blocked. Another great example is Perfume. Yes, that Perfume. The J-pop group. The badass electro dancing, like these girls, they're really pretty. They've got great stage presence. Their music is great. It makes you want to jump. I mean, you go to a Perfume concert, you are going to sweat. You are going to get a workout. It's an experience. just like Baby Metal and 1OK Rock. And by the way, we will get into those two a little bit later. But Perfume was totally at Coachella. Yes, they were. Do you know that? I mean, they were at Coachella. They were at Coachella the same week as Blackpink. Like I said, I would try to limit my talking about K-pop in this segment, in this show for today, because I want to keep it focused on J-pop and Arashi and everything. Well, at the beginning, we were keeping it focused on Arashi, but J-pop. So, back to the subject. Blackpink and Perfume were at Coachella at the same time. Do you know what all the big media outlets talked about that weekend, including Grammy? They were talking about Blackpink, not Perfume, whose world tour got better publicized. Blackpink, who appeared on all the major television and radio shows. Blackpink. And it's not because Perfume is not talented. I've seen them live many times. They are very talented. It's the nature of the way that the people in charge of them do business. Perfume superiors would rather talk to Anime News Network than people representing iHeartRadio or Clear Channel. Or it's so difficult that these players see Blackpink and YG Entertainment being like, hey, come talk to us. This is the next big thing, blah, blah, blah. And they're like, okay, why waste my time? If anybody's confused by what I just said here, what I'm saying is you'll get a big outlet like, I don't know, I'll give you a great example. Fuse TV. You get an outlet like Fuse TV. Let's say there's Joe Schmo's. I'm gonna, because I don't want to hurt anybody. We'll say Joe Schmo's online, online network. They cover all kinds of stuff. They cover, video game conventions. They got video interviews with the major actors, all that stuff. They're killing it at these anime conventions and video game conventions. They're killing it at E3. They're talking to everybody. Well, Perfume's management chooses to talk to them, Joe Schmoes, over Fuse TV. And that is how J-pop gets kind of, not the publicity that they deserve or the publicity that they desire in this situation. I'm certain that the artists and even management would love to promote their material in the U.S. and even enter the digital market. But again, I have to ask, how much of this is the artist and how much of this is the old guard of the Japanese industry wanting to do things one way because that's the way it's been done. Arashi's arrival to the U.S. market is welcomed. It is outstanding, but I fear that it is 10 years too late. Whenever you call is great for the older fans, but I think it is lost on what could be potentially a newer fan base, if that makes sense. Arashi knows they're going to a hiatus. They know that essentially they've done everything they wanted to do in the industry. They don't really have anything to prove anybody. And they've hinted that they will be back at some point, but let's be realistic. When will that point be? These men, I won't call them boys, these men are nearing their 40s, and a large majority of their fan base has families of their own at this point. This is not a market that you break into. This is a market that you continue. If Johnny's and Associates were so serious, or are serious, about bringing J-pop to the U.S. and showing us what Japan has to offer, if they want to be the flagship that brings J-pop to the mainstream, they called the right play here. Don't get me wrong, all the criticism I'm doing here, they've called the right play here, but I think they've done it with the wrong personnel. You need to send someone newer. Arashi is legendary. They're the gold standard, and they have a place in the U.S. music world, but Father Time, just like in the fight game, is undefeated. Why was this not Bruno Mars and King and Prince? I don't understand it. Make it make sense. Business-wise, this would be like SM Entertainment heavily pushing Super Junior instead of NCT in the West. It's great for the fans that know them, but it does nothing to get newer ones. Arashi has got to walk back that hiatus to be taken seriously in the mainstream, and Johnny's has got to give us something new. That's just the game, man. That's just the game. Now, I told you that we would talk about One OK Rock and Baby Metal in this segment. We're going to just briefly touch on that. The difference between those two genres, obviously that's rock and that's pop. The difference here is One OK Rock, when they came to the U.S., they marketed hard. Okay, they did. When they initially came to the U.S., I believe they did only 2 shows, and it was such a turnout. Like, they sold out so hard. It was such a turnout. People were buying tickets from scalpers online. It was such a turnout that One OK Rock was like, oh my God, we got to do this again. And then that, a couple months later, they were on Warped Tour. A couple months after that, they're on Knotfest. One OK Rock did a major push into the Western market. They were already, for those that don't know, One OK Rock was already an established band in Japan. But when they came to the U.S., they were equipped. Whoever marketed One OK Rock, when the Muse or whoever marketed One OK Rock, they did it right. They did it so right that it was a smooth transition into the Western market. And now, older fans are kind of like, hey, their lineup really, really misses their Japanese stuff. But at the same time, they're a household name now. They're winning AP awards. They're winning, they're mainstream. They're in the mainstream. There's no arguing against that. Same thing with Baby Metal. Baby Metal, a lot of metal elitist, I would use quotations on that, elitist, oh, that's not metal, whatever. This isn't for you. Shut up. Anyways, Baby Metal marketed hard around the world. I'm not just going to say in the U.S., around the world. They marketed so hard to be taken seriously, and I think they achieved that. The backing, the Kami band, all the different rock festivals, they knew their market, they knew their demographic, they knew what to jump into. Lollapalooza, they're jumping into all of the different festivals and stuff. They're Aftershock, all of that stuff. Baby Metal was ready to enter into the U.S. market, and you know what? These J-pop groups like Dice and all of them, they were ready to enter into the market. They needed a venue, they needed a platform to do so. And I think it's sad that the only platforms that they get this opportunity on is the anime expos and back when it was around J-Pop Summit and all the little festivals and stuff. They need a K-Con. They need their K-Con. They need a festival that showcases Japanese pop. And Japan needs to stop being shy about sending the boy bands. But alas, Arashi, whenever you call, check it out on YouTube. Produced by Bruno Mars. It's a good track. It's a good nostalgia track, man. It's a good feel-good song. Check it out. It's beautiful. I like it. You probably will too. Like I said, though, I mean, as a journalist, as a fan, I just worry that this is tone deaf by Johnny's Entertainment sending this over here, and I mean, pushing it. You know what I mean? Anyways, that's what I got to say on that one. Now onward to that PS5 pre-release, pre-order debacle. I kind of spoiled it there. It was a shit show. I'm sorry. I've been a Sony fanboy for years. I came over from Nintendo right to Sony. I had a little venture off into Sega, but yeah, I've been a solid PlayStation guy for years, and it's because of the quality that Sony releases things with and take the care that they take with things. This PS5 pre-release was not that. Okay, let me give you the timeline, at least how it worked for me. The timeline. The showcase ends. They say you'll be able to pre-order PlayStation 5 17th of September. It would have been the 18th for Korea, I do believe, if I'm remembering correctly. Okay, Walmart goes and says, oh, make you wait for PS5 pre-orders? We wouldn't do that. You can pre-order now. And then all hell broke loose. Best Buy randomly sends an email. By the way, we're letting you pre-order PS5 right now. GameStop. We'll get into them in a minute. Amazon. And I got to say, by midday, they was gone. I somehow managed to secure a pre-order. I kept the computer, the Best Buy website kept timing out on me. I clicked it eventually it stopped me and it said your order's complete. Lucky me, woohoo. But I feel for everybody else that was out there trying to get it legitimately. Now I understand why Sony did this. Sony did this to try to get the leg up on the scalpers. Good on them, but it's to no avail because if you look on eBay right now, these PlayStation 5s are going for thousands of dollars by these scalpers. When I tried to participate in the pre-order event in Korea, it was, and I shit you not, and I'm using this colorful language because, wow, I kid you, I shit you not. We're waiting there for 12 o'clock to roll around in the office, and okay, so 12 o'clock rolls around. We get in, we get in the virtual line. We get in. It's grayed out. What does that say? Dude, it's sold out. What? What time is it? 12:01 p.m. So even in the mighty Asia where PC gaming is king, PS5 is being scooped up by scalpers. I would imagine this is, if it isn't Koreans that are trying to get their hands on it, I would imagine scalpers have scooped this up to try to make a quick buck off the soldiers. Makes sense. It's dirty, but it makes sense. Anyways, that pre-order was a total disaster, and I'm just speaking on the second wave for the Korean ones. Everybody's been trying to pre-order it. You'll be lucky to get your hands on it. Sony had said that they wouldn't just release it overnight, which seems to be exactly what they did. They released it out of the blue. People are lining up. I said I would get to GameStop. Speaking of lines, I said I would get to GameStop. We got to talk about this because it involves the future of gaming. And when we went to Tokyo Game Show last year, we talked to a couple of developers and a couple of vendors at the Tokyo Game Show, and they even said it's been a big shift towards digital. A lot of the game, a lot of it is digital only release. There are going to be games that aren't even released as a physical copy. Well, here it is. So there's a digital edition of the PS5, and there's a disc-based edition of the PS5. Okay, the digital edition is obviously cheaper. People actually attempted to reserve the digital edition at GameStop, and they were finding that the supplies were either low or non-existent. And I'm going to tell you, this makes perfect sense for GameStop to carry less digital editions, if at all. GameStop is a video game reseller. Their profits come off of reselling used games, used equipment, secondhand. The secondhand market is booming in America. GameStop has they've tried to corner the market on that. I mean, we won't get into how they give you crappy trade value prices and everything, but it makes perfect sense for stores like GameStop to not carry the digital edition of the PlayStation 5. I myself would be very surprised to actually see one available, though, on the shelves, the PS5 digital edition. I tried to reserve it from Best Buy. It sold out pretty quickly. I'm not sure if Best Buy was doing that on purpose or what, but what I am told is a GameStop will get like 15, they'll get 15 pre-orders they're allowed to do for the PS5. All of them will be disc-based. There will be almost never a digital there. And that's because that digital hurts their business model. It's a one-time buy, and you're not going to buy from GameStop again. All of the games and the software you seek for your PS5, if it's digital, will likely be from the PS Store unless you're going to get accessories. But who's going to do that with the advent of online shopping? It's something to think about. I truthfully believe years ago, when we first started this show, when we first started the block of entertainment, Bento Box Saturday, DJ Choco, Rainier, and I would sit and we would debate, what is the future of gaming and the whole digital thing. Now, he predicted mobile gaming would take over the, market. I disagree, and so far that's held true. It hasn't completely taken over, although in Asia, everybody plays mobile games. Everybody plays mobile games. Everybody plays PC games. Even old people. It's nothing to see this. Genshin Impact, I seen old people on the subway playing that. That being said, there was a discussion we had about physical media, and Rainier's favorite, like one of the things I quote him to this day is, and I'm going to do my best impersonation, he'd be like, "Physical media is dead." And he'd imitate himself stomping on a disc like King Kong or something, or the Hulk. And he's like, "Physical media is dead." And he would always say that. He's like, "Physical media, it's dead. It's dead." It's kind of true. I mean, I really do believe this is probably the last PlayStation console you will see with an optical drive. Hell, on computers, optical drives are actually, a lot of times, optical drives are considered legacy technology. Some laptops literally do not come with disk drives anymore, well, CD drives anymore. It's considered legacy technology, and it makes perfect sense that games are starting to get away from this, although this is Sony and Microsoft cornering the market here. I mean, I still believe in physical media. Asia still believes in physical media. But I don't see a future for it beyond this. Think about it for a second. There are monthly sales on PSN for games like, not Genshin Impact. Genshin Impact is free. Ghost of Tsushima, I think arguably one of the top games of the year. They had it on sale for digital like a couple weeks ago. I do believe it was like something like 20 or 30% off. Then I heard it went up to 50% off, and yeah, you can pretty much get that game half off, and you don't have to worry about needing to trade it. The only problem with digital is you can't trade it in when you're done with it. But if you're paying a low price for that product, why do you need to trade it in? And I'll drop another bomb on you if you're still with me here. During my time overseas, I bought approximately one physical copy of a game. It was Red Dead Redemption 2. I bought one physical copy of a game. I have not since. All of the games I have purchased have been through the PlayStation Store on some type of sale. It will be on some type of sale. The only game I purchased new, like full price, was Final Fantasy VII Remake. I got everything else somewhat discounted, but I have not bought a physical copy of a game in about a year or two. And, I don't feel any different about it. It's nicer to have digital. I mean, I guess it would be bad if you didn't have a good internet connection, but I like digital. I hear that there's a problem if the publisher ever loses rights to the game, that could be a problem. But digital, it just makes sense now. It's quicker. We're the instant gratification generation. It's quicker. The disc can't be defective because it's digital content. It's you download it, it's ready to play. You pre-order it, it's open and ready on release day, like Final Fantasy VII Remake. It's better than okay. Spiritually, I like to use that word colorfully. Nothing will ever beat going down to the video game store. The smell of all these used games, you picking up the game, the always attractive. They always hired somebody who was attractive at the video game store, usually attractive girls, to work the cash register. You get to talk to the really pretty girl when you're a teenager, and buy the latest video game, and she's got all the knowledge on the video game. She's trying to hawk off a Game Informer magazine on you because that's her job in the whole Ring of Life thing at GameStop. And that's how they work at GameStop. Anyways, yeah, man, digital is the future. I think this is the last time we see a physical drive on a PlayStation or on a gaming console, period. And I think console gaming is evolving. I do not think, maybe physical media is on its way out, but I do not think console gaming is on its way out. I think console gaming is changing. Console gaming is becoming an interface in your TV, which would be cool, but it would drive up the price of TVs. Console gaming has a place in the household and with gamers. It will always have a place with gamers. But physical media has kind of dropped off. You're going to start to see, I think, less and less games. I would not be surprised if at some point in the PS5 generation, Sony stops releasing games physically. Or at some point in the life cycle of the PlayStation 5 and the Xbox, the Xbox Series X, that they both decide to stop releasing physical copies of games. Or there's going to be a developer out there, a AAA with a AAA title that's not going to have a physical copy. It just makes sense. And I'm told, actually, Shenmue, the remakes for Shenmue, there's a physical copy that was sold in Asia, but that physical copy absolutely did not exist in North America. So it's very different. Anyways, that's my 2 cents on the PS5 pre-order disaster. It was, in fact, a disaster, and it currently still is. It's hats off to you if you got your hands on one. You're going to be waiting a while to get your hands on one if you didn't. I don't know what was up with that. I don't think Sony will miss an opportunity to get more units out there and get more money for the holiday season. It's just not like them. But that is the crossroads gamers are at right now. That being said, yes, it was a disaster. Will the system be successful? That will remain to be seen. is this the last of the physical media bearing consoles? I think absolutely. And with that said, I'm DJ Sean the Batman, and that's going to end our special No Music All Talk show for the week.